Hey, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Ibanez Q series, in this case a Q52 in laser blue. I've had this for just about a week now, and I wanted to give you my feedback as somebody who's played a Strandberg guitar for about a year, a little over a year. I played Strandbergs pretty much exclusively for teaching online and my own personal playing as well. So I sold all my Strandbergs over the course of the past few months, and I wanted to try something new. Shoulder issues prevent me from holding a regular guitar for long periods of time without experiencing uh, shoulder pain, back pain, neck pain, all that stuff. So the Q52 was an interesting concept because it is still a lightweight, headless, well-balanced guitar. And I'm going to go over what I like, and again, everything is going to be in comparison to the Strandberg, which was an excellent instrument. So the first thing that's much more noticeable and different is you don't have the endure neck. Now, I didn't hate the endure neck. I actually quite liked it for like individual, like sort of melody type stuff. But when it came to playing chords, specifically open chords in first position, or even bar chords in first position, were a little awkward sometimes. But mainly the open chords, where I might want to throw my thumb over because I'm not a classical player, I'm a blues rock guy. So anytime I wanted to throw my thumb over, the neck was not uncomfortable, but it was noticeable. And that's something that I can say pretty confidently about the Ibanez Q. It feels a lot more natural, the way I would expect. That being said, I do like the neck a little bit better than the endure neck, and it feels fine playing those individual notes, but they didn't roll the edges, or at least not a lot. From what I can tell, tiny bit. They could have been rolled a little bit more, and I think that would have been a nice improvement. There's also no zero fret, which I actually don't miss. The action was incredibly low on all three of the Strandbergs I had owned over the course of the past year. But this is, with the setup, was able to get just about it where I want it, or just where I would want it normally. And I do quite think that the action is comparable. I'm able to play just as easily. That zero fret might have made it a little bit better or easier to set up, but it's definitely a nicer. It's not something that I miss. It was a nice feature, but it's not something I miss. The locking mechanism on the Ibanez is much different. I'm actually going to take this off and show you. So on a Strandberg, you would take the little screws out to put the strings in. Same exact design here. Once you take those screws out on a Strandberg, though, there's a little metal plate that sits on top of the string, so that underneath the string, so that the string does not push down into what is essentially the screws that hold down this locking mechanism into the non-existent head of the guitar. Now, it seems like a great design, and sure, it worked, but I used to have so much trouble getting the low E string into the string lock mechanism I had NX and pre-NX models, and all of them difficult. I even did a restring video here on YouTube that I think it said took me about 5 minutes to get just the low E string through. Now, this does not have the problem. The screws come out, and then they're mounted from the back. So those little plates that stop it from damaging the strings when you're putting pressure on them with these locking screws, you don't have that. It's just flat on the inside, so you don't have any use or need for that. And it's a lot easier to do a string change. First time doing a string change on this took me, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes. And with tuning up and everything. So that's pretty good. Coming to the nut, the material on both guitars, as far as I can tell, is just a plastic, or maybe like some sort of blended plastic, but nothing special. However, I will say the nut on the Q was cut terribly. When I got this guitar, the action for the first fret, so the nut slot depth essentially, was about 4 times taller than it should have been. So I spent quite a few times just going back and forth with the fret files, or the nut files, sorry, to get that at a right level. And now it feels a lot better, but out of the box, it was not a great experience. Granted, a Strandberg does cost at least the models that I had, around $600 to $700 more than this would. So generally speaking, if you're spending around $1,000, I'd expect the nut to be maybe 2 times taller, just to ensure, like, I don't know, no fret buzz when you get it out of the box. But at $1,000, I would have expected that to be a little bit better. That was one gripe, okay? The stainless steel frets, though, they feel great. I've checked level-wise. There might have been like 1 or 2 high spots, but not anything that was causing issues or fret out. I'm able to... Like, there's no problem with the frets. There's occasionally a buzz if I'm sloppy in my technique. I don't know if you could hear that, but there was a little bit of buzz there. But that's more of me, not the guitar. The guitar itself is great. It did require a setup. Obviously, I told you the nut had to be cut, which meant the saddles had to be adjusted. They had to be radiused. I had to adjust the intonation. Now, going down to the bridge of the guitar, because this is another thing that's different on a Strandberg. On a Strandberg, the strings are fed through. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here so you can see a little bit better. But they go through the back part of these barrels, and then they come out through here and go up through the guitar. Now, didn't mean to play the piano there. But on this, something that's nice is the string doesn't actually have to go through that. So, you know, it used to be a pain. You'd have to stick something in the hole of the barrel part of the tuning mechanism, tuner, whatever you want to call it, on the Strandberg, pull the string up. Here, the ball end feeds, and I'll zoom in, ball end of the string feeds into this little area and then gets pulled back by this mechanism to tighten it, which also means that you're able to do the intonation using this screw right here. There's 6 of them, 1 for each saddle. Whereas on the Strandberg, you had to take the string off, at least partially, and then adjust the screw inside and manually pull or push forward the entire tuner assembly for that string, which meant that getting intonation like dead on, or as close as you would normally expect for a guitar, was a little difficult. However, once it was set, it was good. I did it on each of the guitars, and it maybe took me twice as long as a normal guitar would. This took about the same as a normal guitar. So I would say that's a win for the Ibanez as well. Setting the string height, again on the Strandberg, you'd have to loosen the string, pull it off of the little screw that holds the saddle on, because essentially instead of having this little groove that the string sat in, there's a little screw that allows you to adjust action height, or string height. So you would have to take the string off, adjust that screw, put the string back on, and then test it and make sure it was right, measure it, all that. Also, because of it being a screw and having a notch in it, you'd either have to do 180 degrees or 360 degree turns on that screw, meaning there was no room for real fine adjustments. And to get it perfectly radiused was near impossible. I think there was always like one string that was always a little bit too low or too high to get a 20-inch radius on that. This, by the way, is a 12-inch radius, which is much less dramatic. I don't actually care that much. I prefer flatter radius, but before doing this search on headless guitars, I pretty much played PRS exclusively with a 10-inch radius. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt. I did like the 20-inch radius on that guitar, on the Strandbergs, but I don't have a problem with the 12-inch. So as far as the hardware goes, it seems like for setup purposes, it's a lot easier. As far as tuning goes, they're very similar. You just turn these little dials down, left, so towards you to loosen, or down to tighten. I got 2 used and 1 new Strandberg when I was going through that, that phase. And I would say that these feel smoother. And I'm not sure if that's true, if they actually feel smoother, or if it's just because maybe the 2 that I had used, those are the ones I had the most recently, because I bought the new one first and then eventually sold that one and got the other 2. But it feels a little bit smoother. That isn't to say maybe after a while they'll feel a little bit stiffer like the Strandberg, but it is a completely different mechanism. One of the things that I didn't like about the Strandberg was if you over loosen these, you would get the entire assembly coming off. And there's not really, I can loosen this as much as I want, and this barrel is not coming off. So that's really great. Now, coming to Electronics, I'm not going to say too much other than the fact that like I think I preferred the pickups and just a 5-way switch on the Strandberg. The Ibanez isn't bad. Really, the biggest thing is that's a personal preference. So I just don't personally care all that much for these pickups. Somebody might love them. I don't hate them. I just think on a $1,000 guitar, I would kind of anticipate like, oh, maybe I'm not going to love them. I'll probably throw something else in eventually. But color-wise, they look really great with all the hardware. You can ignore this is after I added on after. It's what I use to show a fretboard diagram like this for teaching. So you can ignore that. So that was after. The knobs on this feel a lot better than the original Strandberg Revision 5 hardware, but they feel very similar to the NX series. Maybe the NX was a little bit more grip, like I had a little more grip on them, but very similar. So body shape, let's go over that. The Ibanez did a really great job of making a lightweight body, and it resonates a lot. Like, turn this off to see if you can hear it. I feel like it resonates more than the Strandberg even did. Now, I have one huge gripe with this body. So something that I liked about the Strandberg was I could hold it here at a 45-degree angle. For this is the shoulder that usually causes me issues. So whatever reason, holding a guitar like this allows this shoulder like forward, I guess, whereas if I have it here, I have to kind of angle back. And that's what bothers my shoulder so much. Now, as you can see, when I try to put it there, the cable sits on my thigh and the guitar is a little bit too high up. Okay, so I can shoot that a little bit more forward, but now I have probably like a 60-degree angle. I don't prefer this angle here. Now, the biggest thing they could have done to fix this, well, they could have done two things. They could have either moved this forward or do what they do on like the AZ models, AZ, however you want to say that, and put the input jack on the back here or maybe somewhere here. I don't know. The Strandberg does it here. I was able to hold that and it didn't get in the way. Believe it or not, this whole entire pickup sits back here, the pickup module for this MIDI pickup. And if I hold it like this, it doesn't get in the way. If I hold it like this, you see it's not really in the way of me. So that, they could have done so many things to have that cable come out a different way and not cause an issue. Because if I take that cable out and all of a sudden I'm holding the guitar like this, I'm able to get the same amount of comfort that I had from the Strandberg. Wrong way to do the strap. I'm able to get the same amount of comfort that I was getting from the Strandbergs without this. The guitarist's nightmare, right? There we go. So I'm able to hold it at about the same angle that I would hold the Strandbergs without having to, like, yes, it drops down because the strap isn't tight enough or whatever, but I could always get a tighter strap. Actually, the strap isn't tightened all the way. So this is perfect, but look, there's no spot for the jack to come through. The jack's right here. So if I wanted the jack to come through, because like now I'm like lifting it up a little bit, that's where the jack is. So it sits right into my leg. If they had changed the placement of that, this guitar would have been literally the perfect guitar for my needs. However, I will say that it's probably a little bit more. It's a little bit more friendly than the Strandberg. There's a lot of weird quirks about the Strandberg. Like, as someone who's worked on guitars for years as well, I had to learn how the hardware worked, and it wasn't difficult to learn, but it was different. Whereas this is a guitar that a guitar player who sets up their own instruments could very easily set it up and have no problems using the normal tools they would need, or normal tools they would have without needing a specialized tool. Like Strandberg does offer the specialized little multi-tool, or if you get the older models, they had like the Allen keys and stuff. But realistically, why the formula for that guitar is a great idea, but in execution, it's a little less efficient. So I have nothing but respect for Strandberg guitars. I still really love them. I would love to try one of the Strandberg Bowden Essentials. Actually, I bought this and forgot I had put in a reverb order for a Bowden Essential, and I had to cancel the reverb order in order to make sure I could get this. But the Bowden Essential seems like it fixed some of those issues that I've been talking about. So it would be interesting to see if it's any better. It's still gonna have the indoor neck, which I'm gonna tell you right now. No matter what, I'm gonna probably prefer this neck. I do plan on rounding the edges of the neck a little bit, just to make it a little bit more comfortable. But really, it's not uncomfortable. It's just noticeable. Now that's what I said about the Strandberg neck, but the Strandberg neck was way more noticeable. So I just wanted to give you guys my 2 cents or just my opinions on this guitar in comparison to the Strandbergs I've been playing over the past year. Because I feel like I've seen a couple of videos compare the two models, but I have a lot of experience playing that Strandberg and playing those Strandbergs. Literally, teaching about 30 hours a week, 40 hours a week, just using Strandberg guitars for the 15 to 20 hours of guitar lessons that I do every week. And then of course there was, if I was doing sheet music for somebody or tabs or something like that, I would, pick up the guitar. That was a guitar that I was holding. If I was sitting in the living room playing, that was the guitar typically I'd hold. Every now and then I play a different guitar, but most of the time that was the guitar I gravitated towards. So I think having that insight would be really helpful, because if you go now and you're going to buy the Bowden Essential, which is the same price as the Ibanez Q at the time, both set around $1,000 or $999 at the time this video comes out. It's a hard decision. Now this, if you're a traditional guitar player, this is going to be much more traditional. It's going to feel like a regular guitar missing the head. Setting it up is going to set up just like a regular guitar. Really the biggest difference here is you have to reach back to tune it, which that's probably one of the biggest downsides to a headless electric guitar in general, but it's a small price to pay. So the Strandberg Bowden Essential, I haven't tried it yet, so I'm not 100% sure, but it does seem like it would be a little bit easier to set up because of the way that they changed the hardware, but the neck is still the neck. So if I do end up getting one of those to try out and show you guys, I'll be more than happy to do that. But otherwise, I'm going to be sticking to this Ibanez Q for a while. And if I have any more update videos to give you, I'll definitely do that in the future. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you found it informative and helpful, and I will see you next time.